Hey everyone, I'm Alan Thrall here at Untamed Strength Gym. In this video I'm going to review some lifting videos sent by you guys. So a little context, about a week ago I posted a community post and said send your lifting videos to me and I will review them for this video. This is a paid service that I offer in person, usually here at Untamed Strength Gym, but I also do an online version of this. It's much more in-depth. It's usually an analysis of all your lifts. But I just want to do this quick rapid fire, send me one lift for free, and I'll do this on YouTube. And I'm really excited to do this. I got a lot of good submissions, so hopefully you can take away something from this video and some of the corrections that need to be made for these lifts. Now, there were quite a few lifts in here that I've seen so far. I haven't seen all of them, but there were quite a few lifts that look good. There's really nothing that I can correct. Just keep doing what you're doing, and I made sure to let everyone know that with a quick response. First video is lifting without limits, and it's a push press. Excited to do a push press. I like doing squat, bench, deadlift also, but it's just a little less common to see a push press. So here we go, 150 pounds for 5 reps. Now, the push press looks very good. I think his stance width is good. His feet stay flat on the dip. He actually comes up onto his toes on the way up, which is good. Good lockout overhead. He's pressing the bar back over his head, so the bar is resting at the top over his shoulder joints. All of that looks good. He actually mentioned that he has trouble with a good front rack position, and that is one thing that I would correct. So what you need to do for this front rack position, flare your shoulders up and out. So rather than pulling the shoulder blades back here, you actually want to push your shoulders forward, just like an Olympic lifter when they do a clean and jerk. If you can get a good solid front rack position, that is going to allow you to transfer a lot more power from your legs and torso. So your torso should be supporting the bar on the dip down, on the drive up, and your torso and your legs are propelling the weight up, and then you'll finish with your arms overhead. You don't want to hold the weight in your hands. Your hands are simply there to balance the bar, and your hands are connected to the bar so that once you apply that force, you can finish with your hands, obviously. So I'm going to show you a drill that is really going to help you get into a better front rack position. First off, I would ditch the wrist wraps unless you've got wrist pain. At least lighten the wrist wraps, because you don't want to restrict any mobility in your wrists. You want your wrist to be able to bend. So just a little bit less restriction of the wrist wraps. Now, what I would suggest for warm-ups, you're going to take lifting straps, not wraps, but lifting straps. You're going to wrap them around the barbell. If you don't have any, you could just do just a normal grip. But you're going to do a full grip on the barbell. And you're going to do a front squat, starting with the empty bar, with your elbows up as high as you can get it. So a full grip front squat. That's going to be your warm-up. You'll do the barbell for 10 reps. Whatever weight you're going to use for your working sets on push press, I want you to warm up that way for the front squat. So here you've got 150 pounds, I think is what you said. Yeah, 150 pounds. So you're actually going to warm up to 150 pounds on this full grip front squat. 10 reps with the empty bar, 10 reps with something like 75 to 85 pounds, 10 reps with 105 to 125, and then 10 reps with your 150. Once you get into that, it's going to be miserable. It's going to be terrible. You're going to feel like the bar's wanting to fall down off your shoulders. It's going to be taxing on your wrists, on your elbows, and your shoulders. But this is going to be kind of overcompensating as a warm-up in order to get a good front rack position for the push press. So once you've done that warm-up, now you're ready. You can even take weight off the bar to warm your shoulders back up, but now you'll be ready to push press with a solid front rack position. Next video is shock. Squat critique, 4 sets of 5, last set with 92.5 kilos, 204 pounds. All right, here we go. So this squat actually looks pretty good. And as I was watching the first few reps, I thought I'm just gonna pass this one, tell him he's doing pretty good, keep it up. But since we're here, I want to mention one thing. Your depth is good, your balance is good. Can't really see your feet, but looks like your squat width is good. Maybe a little bit tighter upper back. Everything else looks pretty good. Now, this fidgeting is what I wanted to mention. Don't do that. Don't fidget. Even if you do a squat rep and you feel like maybe I need to adjust my stance a little bit, don't. Just stick with it, ride it out. You need to be so locked in and focused on this set that you're not worrying about fidgeting around. You've got to stop fidgeting. Keep your feet there. You're fine. You're fidgeting for no reason. You adjusted your stance and it did nothing for you. It's the same. Looks like you narrowed it and then widened it. Don't do this. Hang in there. Leave your hands on the bar. Leave your feet in place. Commit to it and go. Don't fidget. That's for any lift. Next video is Spencer, 145 pound overhead press for 4 reps. Failed the 5th. So a couple things I noticed here. Unless you prefer that narrow stance, that's a traditional military press. So a military press would be your feet are close together, which makes the stability a little more difficult, and you're using no body lean, so you actually have to push the bar out and around your head. A traditional strict press, you're going to use a more stable base, so widen your stance to at least shoulder width, maybe even wider than shoulder width. Toes pointed out a little bit. What that's going to do with a wider stance is help you flex your quads and flex your glutes. And when you have a wider stance, you can actually sink your hips forward and really lean into those tight, rock solid glutes. And that's going to help provide some stability as you're pressing overhead, which is going to help you push harder, more reps, more weight for your shoulders. So wider stance, toes pointed out a little bit. And the next thing I'll point out is your rack position. I think that your grip is slightly too wide. Unless you use that grip because it makes for a comfortable lockout. So there's a trade-off with the overhead press. A narrow starting position, a narrow grip is going to be much better for the rack position. It is going to be much more sturdy because you can put your forearms on your biceps, you can rest your triceps on your lats. You've got a lot of stability here for the overhead press. You can put a lot of power into that initial press. Now, when you get to the top, if you are limited with your overhead mobility, a narrow grip might be a little bit challenging to hold overhead. So there's a bit of a trade-off. You can go with a wider starting position, which is going to be less stable for that starting position, but it's going to make your lockout a little bit easier with a wider grip. If you imagine trying to hold a clean grip overhead versus a snatch grip is going to be much easier. So if your overhead mobility can work with it, narrow your grip a little bit. And again, what that's going to do is get your elbows or your triceps to rest more on your lats. And from this view is a little bit lower. It's like waist level, maybe a little less than waist level. The barbell looks like it's touching on the top of your sternum. The barbell should go no lower than your collarbones. Down here is no man's land. So when you have a wider grip, you're lowering it way down at your sternum. A narrower grip is going to make your forearms longer. So if I had really wide grip, technically I would artificially be shortening my forearm, but narrow is going to make my forearm stand taller. So it's going to be between my collarbones and my chin. That is a good starting position. No man's land going below that collarbone. So, and it looks like you're lowering down like that. So narrower grip, bring the barbell up just a little bit, and you should be good to go from there. I think that was it. I also think that this narrower grip is going to help you with that last rep, that failed rep. So much like the bench press, a failed rep on a grindy overhead and a failed rep on the bench press is usually not necessarily a misgroove, but you just can't get the barbell back in time. When you bench press, the bar comes down this ramp, and then you press back up the ramp to get it over your shoulder joints and lock it out. Overhead press is the same. The bar starts in front of your body, it finishes over your shoulder joint, which is your midline. So the bar has to be pressed back a little bit. And when you are pressing really wide like this, you're pressing up, you get stuck out here. You get stuck right before your forehead. A narrower grip will produce a higher starting point, which will be a little bit easier to push back over your head once it gets to that sticking point. That's it. Next video is Justin Ramirez, and what's he got on the bar here? 405 for 5 reps. No, 405 for 4 reps. This squat is good also. From what I can see, the back view, the rear view looks fine. But man, I had to post this video. You need to get some shoes. You can have flat shoes. You can get deadlift slippers that have grip on them. But this looks like you're just wearing cotton socks on that polyurethane polished wood. And I can see a little bit of movement in your feet. This is just extremely sketch, man. If you're pushing your feet out, or if anything, if you just get a little forward, a little backwards, this is a recipe for disaster. I can see your feet moving around. Socks on polished wood, not a good idea. Get some shoes, even if it's Converse. good news is that's all I have to say. Your squat looks pretty good from this view. The depth looks good, balance looks good, tempo looks good. If you're squatting on rubber mats with socks, that's fine. Even socks on carpet would be okay. But on this polished wood, shoes. Gotta get some shoes. Next is Aravind. So Aravind's got some stiff leg deadlifts. And I'm only posting this because these stiff leg deadlifts look great. So I figure what I'm looking for with a stiff leg deadlift, I'll share with you guys. And if you like doing stiff leg deadlifts, you might benefit from this guy's video. This is a good how-to stiff leg deadlift. So quickly, a stiff leg deadlift would be a deadlift from the floor using stiff legs or relatively straight legs compared to your normal deadlift. A Romanian deadlift, which is often confused with a stiff leg deadlift, starts at the top. You would lower the bar down to, anywhere between your knee and ankle, just depending on how much range of motion you have, and then come back up. So the rep starts and stops at the top. There's an eccentric and a concentric portion to a Romanian deadlift. But this is a good stiff leg deadlift. I'll stop myself there. There's one correction I would make to this. I would pause on the ground for longer. You want to eliminate the stretch reflex. One difference between a Romanian deadlift and the stiff leg deadlift is that there is a stretch reflex in the Romanian deadlift. There shouldn't be for a stiff leg deadlift. It should start and stop from a dead stop, just like a traditional deadlift. This would be a touch and go stiff leg deadlift, which at that point is pretty much a Romanian deadlift. You're just touching the ground. So the things that I'm looking for here, the things that he's doing well, his legs are as straight as he can get them, but they're not locked out. His knees aren't hyperextended. There's a slight bit of bend in his knees at the start. Totally fine. Now notice the hips, as he lowers it, the hips go back, 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 but they never go down. Hips go back, 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 never down. This is good. The knees, if you pay attention to the knees, they are not going forward. Sometimes people will lower the barbell with a stiff leg deadlift or a Romanian deadlift. They'll lower the barbell with their knees in a good position, and as they come back up, they'll push their knees forward to get a little more quad out of it. That's not the point of a Romanian deadlift or a stiff leg deadlift. You want to use your hamstrings, glutes, and back to pull the weight. So notice his knees stay behind his arms. His knees do not go forward at all. They stay back behind his arms. If your knees are pushing forward into the barbell or pushing forward into the inside of your arms, you're bending your knees. So the cues are hips back, not down. Knees never travel forward. This is a good stiff leg deadlift. Well done. All right, next up we've got Kalen. He's 143 kilo squat for 3 reps, and then another squat, 2 reps with 146 kilos. So some background information. He was stuck in the novice phase using starting strength style of programming for many years with heavy reliance on hip drive. I recently changed to high bar squat over a year ago, and as I get more fatigued and the weight gets heavier, I fall back into low bar squat habits. All right, let's take a look. So understand that if you do change your technique, or if you go from something like high bar to high bar, and you're still using top end weights, it's going to be hard to change or to start new habits or break old habits. So you might have to adjust the weight just so you can give yourself enough time to practice with this new technique, but still use a heavy enough weight, an appropriate amount of weight that you have to actually try. Don't just squat a broomstick for 6 weeks practicing new technique. Okay, so I can see what you're saying about the reliance on hip drive and some of those low bar squat habits. It's especially on the third rep, which I'll replay again. We can see that your knees out of the bottom, your knees push back and your hips rise up. And then your knees push forward to finish the rep. So what's happening is you're getting to the bottom, you're driving your hips not up like starting strength advises, you're pushing your hips back. So you're dumping the weight onto your back, levering it up with your back, and then in order to get to the top, you push your knees forward again. So a couple things. The only cue that I'll offer you is to keep your knees in place at the bottom. So wherever your knees hit, the forwardmost position that they land, or the forwardmost position that they hit at the bottom, they need to stay there as you stand up. So they're not pushing back and then pushing forward. So just cueing yourself, leave your knees in position. Let your knees stay forward. Don't let your knees slide back. Might be helpful, but with these top end weights, it might be too difficult to try to implement that cue. So what I would suggest even more than this cue is to incorporate some variations into your routine. So if you're only squatting once a week, try a second day a week squatting with a variation. The first one would be tempo squats. So you're going down 3 seconds down and 3 seconds up. Slow squatting. These are extremely challenging. I would keep it in the 6 to 8 rep range. 3 seconds down, 3 seconds up is probably all you're going to need. Don't bounce at the bottom. It's full control all the way down and all the way up. Don't pause at the bottom either. So tempo squats are really going to be helpful with getting your ingrained in your head. Keep your knees forward. Keep your knees in their forwardmost position as I stand up. Now, the next thing after tempo squats, I would also suggest pin squats. So pin squat is unique, a little bit different than a pause squat. You're gonna, shoot, I just seen the squat rack you're using. If you have a squat rack with adjustable safeties, try doing pin squats. You'll squat down, the bar will rest, pause on the pins, and then you'll stand up. And a pin squat, once you stop at the bottom position, you are stuck there. So if you are a little too far forward, a little too far back, you have to overcome that as you stand up. With a pause squat, even though you're pausing at the bottom, you still get a chance to regain your balance and make adjustments if needed. So if you go down and descend under your toes at the bottom, you can correct it and then stand up. With a pin squat, you can't do that. So I really like pin squat for fixing any sort of technical flaw in the bottom end range, that bounce region of your squat. Pin squats and tempo squats. Again, I would say 6 to 8 reps, 3 seconds down, 3 seconds up, and push yourself. Keep it at like RP 8 or 9, which isn't going to be very heavy. Let's take a look at this. So 2 repetitions. Right off the bat, I don't think you were wearing socks in your last video. You were wearing shoes, right? So you're wearing shoes. I don't know if those shoes have a heel, but I would suggest wearing some shoes if you're doing high bar squats. That little bit of heel, that elevated heel, I think is going to be helpful for you. One other cue that I would say that's going to be helpful for keeping your knees forward. Push through your toes. As you're standing up, push through your toes. A lot of times lifters will exaggerate, drive through the heels, and so their balance shifts back on their heels, their knees push back, their hips lift up. So push your toes into the ground as you stand up, and that might help you keep your knees forward. All right, we've got Flynn 375 times 5 rep squat. So first thing, when I opened this, I noticed the wide stance, and I wanted to see if this was a problem. It's not necessarily a problem, but it's something that I should at least mention. So the good, you're doing a good job of, your depth looks good, your balance looks good, your feet are staying flat the whole time down and up. I think your bar position looks good, and your reps look pretty much identical from rep to rep, even with a heavy weight. So this wide stance, a wide stance can be beneficial for someone that has a big front porch, so they need to open up some space. And when I say wide, I just mean wider than shoulder width, quite a bit wider. It can also be helpful for someone who squats down too low. This is a problem that I have. You kind of just want to bury and squat all the way down to the bottom. By widening your stance a little bit, you're going to feel a tightness in your hips that is a good thing to prevent you from squatting down so low. Now, I don't think you're having this problem. You might just prefer this wide stance. The issue that I'm seeing here is your knees want to push in at the bottom. The wider your stance, the more difficult it's going to be to keep your knees out in line with your toes. So your knees push in, and when your knees push in, they're pushing back as well. So it's pushing your hips back, and it's turning your squat into that good morning squat. And I don't say that to insult your squat. This is a pretty good looking powerlifting squat. But you dump a lot of that effort onto your back, your posterior chain, which might help you squat a little bit more weight. If you're a power lifter, it might be worth adjusting a little bit, because you might be taking adding a lot of fatigue to your back, which takes away from your deadlift performance. Now, what I would suggest is, if you don't really want to change your stance, if you want to keep this, I would suggest on your second or third squat variation of the week, do a narrower stance high bar squat or a front squat, and really focus on keeping your knees forward. So when you hit the bottom, don't let your knees push in, don't let your knees push back, keep them forward the whole time. And I think that will supplement your squat here. All right, next up is deadlift 455 pounds for 3 reps from Brendan. I'm hoping you can fix my knee cave. So that was the first thing I noticed. I watched the video before seeing that comment about your knee cave. But my first observation was, whoa, what the heck is that knee doing? Was there a prior injury or like a neurological thing? Either way, I think I can help you out a little bit. Your deadlift is strong and is good otherwise. But you had said yourself you want to fix that knee cave. So here's what I'm going to suggest. Let me check out these other videos. So I kind of want to just address your deadlift more so than that knee cave issue. You are starting with the barbell too far away from you. You're not moving the barbell, that's good, but you're starting with the barbell too far out away from your shins. And so when you get into the starting position, your knees are sticking out so much farther than your arms. Your knees should be inside of your arms. The front of your knees flush with the front of your arms. Your knees should not push out past your arms. If they do, the bar has to go out and around your knees, or you're starting with the barbell too far in front of your body, like over towards the front of your foot, and so the bar has to travel back. The reason you do that, and the reason a lot of people do that, is because you get a lot of power from your legs, and you are an explosive deadlifter. Your deadlifts come off the ground pretty quickly, very strong. You're generating a lot of force and power with your legs, and a lot of strongmen do this too. You'll notice that as they pull, their hips rise up and the bar always scoots back. The reason this can be a problem, and you actually demonstrated it in your last video, which I'm gonna pull up here and then I'll go back to that one. So in this last video where you fail the third rep, let me get here. Let's watch this together. So you notice you bend your knees quite a bit. Your knees are pushing forward, and then the bar swings back towards your body. So when you miss that rep, by bending your knees too much, what I'll call too much, and using a lot of leg drive, you are generating a lot of power at the start. And so that bar is moving quickly, which helps you to lock the weight out. However, once the bar speed slows or crashes, you're tired or there's too much weight on the bar, you're in a bad position and you can't grind that rep out. So this is a classic example of not being able to grind through deadlifts. People who can grind at RPE 10 a deadlift, advanced powerlifters, their positioning is perfect. And so they're able to display 100% of their strength, power, force into that barbell. It's like threading a needle. However, you're not able to fully display your capabilities and your strength because your positioning's off. So by lifting your hips up, bringing the bar back, bringing your knees back closer to your midline over the middle of your foot, I think that you'd be able to grind through that rep, because that bar moves quickly and then just crashes. I don't know if there was something else that happened, but I'm assuming that's the problem. Because you start with the barbell out too far out in front of you, and your knees are too bent and you have to pull the bar back, you'll notice as the barbell passes your knees, the weight's pulling you forward and you're having to hitch and pull the bar back to make contact with the front of your legs. You actually, on this third rep, you see, you'll get on your toes. You'll get let me slow it down. You'll get on your toes and then pull yourself back. So there's this hitch that you're trying to pull the bar back because it's too far out in front of you. So again, just to reiterate the things I talked about, you need to bring your hips up, knees back so they're in line and flush with the front of your arms. The bar needs to come back over closer to your shins at the start. Now, as far as the knee cave goes, I'm going to suggest pause deadlifts. Pause deadlifts are I think better than pause bench, better than pause squat, and the reason is it really reinforces a good starting position, because like you here, you pull with a lot of explosiveness and a lot of power at the start. So you're really going to limit that by doing a pause deadlift. I'm talking pause deadlift 2 inches off the floor. It should float off the floor. You can slide a piece of computer paper under it, and that's about it. So you want to pull the bar off the ground. I'm going to give you 2 inches, so it actually leaves the floor. But you're going to pull the bar just 2 inches off the ground and pause. 1, 2, and then stand up. That's going to force you to pull slower. It's going to force you to get the bar in closer, because since you are starting with the barbell out in front of you, you're not able to pause that weight. You have to keep it very close if you're going to pause that weight for 2 seconds. And as you're doing that, think about keeping your knees out against your arms. So front of the knees go in line and flush with the front of the arms, and your knees should be touching the insides of your arms. So think about pushing the knees out against your arms, pull the bar off the ground, squeeze the bar off the floor. 1, 2, and then stand up. and just hammer those like crazy. And I think that not only will your deadlift look a lot better, you'll be able to display your strength a lot better, and your knee cave should be fixed. Other than that, these are very strong deadlifts. You got some good power. So I think I'm gonna have to end the video there because it's already very long and I have a lot of submissions. So man, I thought this was gonna be a part one thing, or excuse me, a one part thing, but I think I'm gonna do like 5 parts, maybe release it over the next several weeks. Thanks for watching, and always remember, until next time, train on time.